Shalom. This is James King. Welcome to Messiah, Texas 5-Minute Friday. Today we're going to be talking about Psalm 51 and the topic of confession. Remember the worst sin that you've ever committed, the one that you don't even want to think about, much less ever talk about. You're so ashamed of what you did. And when you hear someone else talk about it or bring it up or imply it, it makes you want to go the other direction and cringe. Maybe even it makes you want to deny it because it's so dark. King David wrote Psalm 51 about his blackest, darkest sin. Imagine you're King David and you're standing amongst your people and you're in the kingdom and you hear someone say, "Oh yeah, we're going to learn a new song today." This is one that David wrote when after he had been confronted by the prophet Nathan after he'd gone into Bathsheba. Imagine hearing those words talking about your blackest, darkest sin in a public forum. You know, we're just finished an election cycle, and it seems that for the leaders who would be accused of something that maybe they had done in the past, the policy is deny, 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 on both sides, Democrat and Republican. I know of a leader that reminds me of King David. King David had his mighty men, and they would follow him anywhere, even to death, and many of them did, because they trusted him. They trusted his heart because they knew that he was transparent. There's another leader who has thousands of followers, and her name is Dani Johnson. She lives in Kerrville, Texas, and I've been to a number of her conferences and read some of her books and watched a number of her videos and listened to her audio tapes through the years. One of the reasons that I do that is because Dani teaches from her own failures. She exposes herself. I've heard her do it time and again, even drug use and infidelity in her marriage. And this is with her husband in the room and her adult children walking around. She's raw. She lets the people know her failure so that they can see, they can relate and realize that they can overcome. And that's why David wrote Psalm 51, is so that we can do the same thing. When you and I sin, there's power in the confession. There's power. You know, the scripture says in John, if we confess our sin, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sin and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. So we say, well, I did. I confessed it to God, and it's just not something people need to know about. I confessed it to my prayer partner and the person that I sinned against, and that's all the people need to know about. It's just not something I need to air out. One of the reasons for a public confession is it breaks the power of the accuser. So going back to my example of Dani Johnson, she has a lot of critics, but every time one of her critics comes up on a public forum and say, well, but Dani Johnson did cocaine, all of the people who listen to her and follow her and love her say, yeah, we know all about that. Or Dani Johnson cheated on her husband, and yeah, we know about that. Or Dani Johnson had a bankruptcy. Yeah, we know about that. We know all these things because she has told us. King David bared his soul before his people so they could trust him. You have a testimony, and people don't always just need to see all of your successes. They need to know that, like them, you have failures. And so when you read Psalm 51, recognize that is a public confession to everybody of the deepest, darkest sin that David had. So gather up the courage and prayerfully, when the time is right, you confess. And confess it knowing that the power of the accuser is broken when you expose the sin to the light in your life and in the life of others. God bless you.